Hello everyone, this is Robyn with mypinkstamper.com. Welcome to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here. I have an absolutely amazing card for you today, and I'm not just bragging about it, but it's actually pretty cool. So we're gonna do some fun techniques. We're gonna do a little embossing with the silver embossing powder, and we're gonna use the Big Shot with one of our newest bundles. So I'm really excited. So we're gonna go ahead and step right in. If you are new to my channel, I'm so happy that you're here. I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you like what you see. If you don't like what you see, don't worry about doing that, but I hope that you do. Okay, so we are going to be doing, like I said, a little bit of embossing. And I'll have all of the item codes and everything I use is going to be on the screen for you right here. So you can, if you'd like to place any orders, my shopping page is mypinkstamper.stampinup.net, and you can find everything there for you. Super easy to find. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I have a piece of our Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to start. This is just a scrap piece that's big enough to use the stamps that I'm going to use, and I'm using our embossing buddy. This helps with the static so you don't get the little flecks of embossing powder all over your paper. And now what I'm going to do is I'm using the beautiful Promenade stamp set, and I'm also using it with the coordinating Beautiful Layers Thinlits. You can get this in a bundle and you can save 10%, or you can purchase them both individually. It's totally up to you. I'm going to be using just the flower. I'm using the two-step flower on this one, and then I'm going to use a sentiment from a different stamp set. What I really love about paper crafting and stamping is you can mix and match, and they do give you suggestions, and they have, this is a fun, it's a very sweet and thoughtful stamp set, but I'm making some cards for some of my team members who promoted, and I wanted to kind of just jazz it up a little bit. Okay, so I have these ready to go. I'm going to be starting with, I probably should have put that on after. I'm going to start with the Coastal CABANA ink pad. And I'm going to stamp the second part of the two-step stamp first. Usually I'll put this after I do the outline, but I'm going to stamp that first. And I'm just going to give it a second just so the paper can absorb this ink, since I will be using embossing powder and I don't want it to kind of stick all over that. So I'm actually going to do the embossing buddy just one more time over that. I should have waited and done that first. Okay, now I'm using our VERSAMARK pad, which is a watermark stamp pad. You can use this with colored cardstock, and it gives you a watercolor look for backgrounds. And you can also use this for embossing and for some fun techniques. So I'm using it for embossing today. And I have my silver embossing powder, and what I do is I just get the little containers. I usually get 2 or 3 at a time of our embossing powders, and I put them in here so I'm ready to go for some fun projects. Now I'm going to use the outline stamp, ink it up in the VERSAMARK, and I'm going to line this up as best as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a great thing about paper crafting and crafting in general. It looks more homemade when it's not perfect, so instead of getting upset over a mistake, you should cheer, yay, I made a mistake, they're gonna know I made it. Okay, pat that off. And now I'm going to use our heat tool. This is our Stampin' Up! Heat tool, and it has 2 settings. The first setting is just for setting your ink, if you'd like to set your ink. The second setting is to actually melt the embossing powder. So I'm just going to melt that. There are different ways, different paper crafters do their embossing differently. I don't move my gun around. I don't feel I need to. I just kind of follow it, watch it melt. So however you'd like to do it is a personal preference. So pretty, so beautiful and shiny after it melts. Okay, so I have that all melted, and just going to set it aside for a second. Now I'm also going to do a little bit of embossing on the background paper. So I have here a piece of our Bermuda Bay, which I feel coordinates perfectly with our Coastal CABANA. So these are great. This is a great color combination to put together. And I'm using the VERSAMARK again. I'm going to use the Embossing Buddy again, just give it a quick swipe. And now I'm going to be using a different stamp set, like I said earlier. I'm actually going to be pulling a stamp set from the Stitched All Around stamp set. This also comes in a bundle with some really fun framelits. I am just using, oh darling, you are fabulous, because that's something that I would say to my team members and my customers. So I'm going to be using that really cute sentiment. I love the fonts. I love really everything about it. So I'm going to be inking that up. Oh darling, you are fabulous. And I'm going to put it in the bottom right corner. And I'm going to grab my silver embossing powder. If you're doing small amounts of embossing powder and stamps, you don't need a background paper. You can just do it right here inside your container. And I just picked those up, I think at the Dollar Tree. You can get them probably at Walmart or anywhere that has little plastic containers. Look at that. This is so pretty. I love it when it changes. It's just magical. All right, so that's all of my heat embossing. We're gonna set these aside. I'm not doing any more stamping, so I can set everything aside over here. And I like to close up as I go. I usually try to clean up as I go. Well, sometimes I can't always say that I do that, because if you follow me on Instagram, I sometimes have a hot mess in my room because I get in my creative, chaotic mode and I go crazy. Okay, so we are going to pull out our Big Shot. This is the Stampin' Up! Big Shot. Designed, it's by Sizzix, but it's designed just for Stampin' Up! And we have exclusive dies and framelits that work with it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take this one here, and I'm using the Beautiful Layers, and I'm going to this one has a framelit that goes perfectly around this flower. So all I have to do is kind of line it up the best I can. And I'm using the Precision Base Plate. That's my go-to plate. I use it for everything. I know different paper crafters might use different platforms. I absolutely love the Precision Base Plate. I've never had any problems with any of my dies. All right, I'm gonna set this aside. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of our silver glimmer paper, and this is our newly formulated designed glimmer. If you notice, there's not glitter just falling everywhere. There's very few, what is the right word? It's not as messy as our old silver glimmer, which I loved, but this one is just a little bit less messy, which is wonderful. So I'm going to use another framelit from the Beautiful Layers and run it forward and run it back. And I have one more frame to do after this. I'm going to pull out our Big Shot die brush. And this is perfect for a die like this because there's a lot of little pieces, so you could poke them all if you wanted to. I just brush it in there like that. Look at that. And I noticed that the redesigned or reformulated glimmer paper doesn't peel. Sometimes the old one would maybe peel a little bit. You had to be careful. So I can just take the rest of these out if I want to. I can keep a couple of them in. It really, you know, that's the style right now, is you leave some of them in. I'm a little too OCD for that. I like to have every single one out. So it's really, again, paper crafting is your preference. This is just to give you an idea and a base and kind of show you how the different bundles and the stamp sets look. So I'll probably keep a couple of them in there because they're not bothering me too bad. Okay, so isn't that just so gorgeous, you guys? Look at that. Ah, la. All right, I'm gonna set that aside. And I can just dump this in my garbage. See how I'm cleaning up as I go? Do you notice that I'm wiping this all on my floor? That's how I clean up as I go. Because I'm just gonna vacuum after just the little pieces. Okay, all right, so now we have one more framelit that we're putting in the Big Shot. This is a circle, a stitched shaped circle that comes from our Stitched Shapes framelits. And I'll have the whole entire set on the screen so you can see the variety. We have circles, squares, and ovals, and they all come in the same set. This is my most used framelit set out of any one that we past, present, probably future. I hope it's never retired because I use it all the time. And if you take my online classes, you know that I at least have one project, sometimes two, that uses one of the shapes from the Stitched Shapes Framelits, because I absolutely adore it. It's so worth your money. You get so much out of it. All right, so now we're gonna put this card together. It's a simple card, but there's some really fun techniques on it, and anyone can make this. If I can make this, you can follow right along and make it with me. All right, so this is a piece of our thick Whisper White cardstock. It is cut at 5.5 by 8.5 inches. And I am just going to fold this over. I have it scored at 4 1/4. And I used our paper trimmer for that. I don't have that out right now. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start with the bottom layer. And we already talked about this Bermuda, and this is 4 by 5 1/4. I can't remember if I said the size or not. So now you know. So I'm going to put this on here. The next thing I'm using is just a little piece of our silver foil sheet. This is cut at 1.5 by 5 1/4. These come in 12 by 12 sheets, and you get 2 in a pack for $4, which is a pretty sweet deal. You can, a little goes a long way with this beautiful foil paper. And I love it. It just adds a lot of just sparkle, shine, shimmer, shine. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this piece around that we already embossed and stamped, and I'm going to use some of our Stampin' dimensionals. I think 2 will be plenty for this one. I'm going to turn this around, and then I'm going to add this onto the Coastal. Did I say this was Coastal Cabana? Coastal Cabana. Robyn, what is going on? So I'll have that item code on the screen for you, Coastal Cabana cardstock, and it works perfectly with the Bermuda Bay. Okay, so I have that added on here. Now, when you're working with glimmer paper, the regular adhesives don't seem to stick very well, so I like to use our mini glue dots, and I've been using the mini glue dots for years now with our glimmer paper. I'm going to put 1 in the middle, and then I'm just going to maybe do 4 around, and that's it. And then I'm going to stick that right on this gorgeous die cut. Isn't it just so beautiful? Look at how sparkly and shimmery and shiny that is, you guys. All right, our final touch on this card is we're going to add some of our Stampin' dimensionals. Did we already use those? I think we used those just a minute ago, right? So these are the Stampin' dimensionals. I use them on every single project I make. Absolutely every single project I make has Stampin' dimensionals. So if you need to add something to an order, these are only $4 and you get 300. So it's a pretty sweet deal. I'm going to add that right here. Look at that, you guys! So just sparkly, shimmery, beautiful. And the best part about this card is I'm like not a professional or anything. Anyone can make these cards. I will have the complete item codes in the description of this YouTube video or directly on my website. At the very end of this video, if you watch to the very end, you can see actually a picture of everything I've used with the item codes. These can all be ordered directly from my shopping page, mypinkstamper.stampinup.net. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.